The Cancer Society says it's outraged at a government decision to ignore a recommendation by its own Health Select Committee to ban smoking in cars where children aged under 18 are passengers. In 2015, Smoke Free Northland submitted a petition to the committee calling for smoking in cars to be banned in those circumstances. And while the government has committed to a smoke-free New Zealand by 2025, it's rejected the recommendation, saying there's no point imposing a law that's likely to be flouted. Well, the Cancer Society's CEO, John Loof, told me he questions why the government has set up a ministry for vulnerable children when it hasn't stood up for children travelling in cars with smokers.
Quite frankly, John, I don't think anyone has. The exact quote from the documents, from the government's response, is they say present initiatives are sufficient to deter smoking in cars carrying young children.
What are present initiatives?
Well, that's a good question. I had a look on the government's health promotion agency website, the HPA website, and really there's very little there. These are the people who organise the campaigns around a range of health issues, and there's virtually nothing there. There's a few pointers. There's a couple of bullet points there. I think you can order some stickers for your car. That's about it. A few years ago, there were some TV campaigns. Your listeners might remember, there was a lady leaning on the car outside the netball courts having a smoke. That ad, and that ran for a little while, but that's going back a number of years now. So there's not much going on as far as we can tell.
Right, and the Cancer Society is absolutely, singularly certain that this should be a practice that the government says no to.
Absolutely. I mean, you put yourself in the position of a parent who maybe asks a friend to pick up their youngsters from daycare or primary school or something like that, and the kids sit in the car, the adults are in the front smoking away, and the kids have no alternative. They're breathing in that stuff, and they come home smelling of smoke and all the rest of it. I mean, I think most of us would go, hey, that's well out of order. New Zealand does not have a good track record when it comes to the health and safety of its kids. We're at the top of a lot of the wrong statistics, and things like respiratory illness and sudden infant death syndrome and all of these sorts of things have connections with inhalation of tobacco smoke. So, other countries have got on top of this issue, many other countries.
Can you cite examples? So what are the countries that have said no to this full stop?
Okay, every state in Australia. You do this, you get caught in Tasmania, for example. They were the first state over there. You get an on-the-spot $110 fine. So we've got Canada, France, the UK. We've even got 10 states in the United States trialling these sorts of laws as well. And there are a lot of other smaller jurisdictions. But, those are big countries. Canada, France, UK, Australia. They're all on top of this issue. And for some reason, our government has chosen to ignore the recommendations of its own Health Select Committee and its own ministry, and it just, we just can't understand it. We're really letting our kids down.
What happens now? Because there's a sense of bewilderment and frustration from people who work with children or people who understand explicitly the risks of being exposed to cigarette smoke, but the government can choose to ignore everything you're saying if it wants. Yeah,
well, that seems to be the position at the moment. We're certainly calling on the government to reconsider this issue. It's not unprecedented. These other countries are on top of it. They've been doing it for a number of years, and there are a whole raft of additional countries who are contemplating similar legislation. So, this isn't New Zealand sort of going into uncharted waters. This is pretty standard stuff. And even the government's own papers say that there is very strong community support for these sorts of initiatives. They've done their own surveys, and yet we've got tens of thousands, but some estimates, according to Otago University, over 100,000 kids a year exposed to this kind of stuff. It's a bit hard to believe, quite frankly, John.
John Loof from the Cancer Society.